Welcome to Midday Live. We're live from the News Hub at Adesanwe in Accra. We're streaming worldwide on the internet via 3news.com as well as our Facebook page at TV3 Ghana. My name is Solace Rose Porte. Now the headlines for this afternoon. And workers of Ayalolo Transport Company begin an indefinite strike. We'll be taking a look at exactly why this is happening. Also, over 11,000 birds dead following fresh outbreak of bird flu. And on the international front, dozens of migrants missing after a rubber boat sank off the coast of Libya. We have all these stories and more, as well as entertainment and some business news, including sports. All this coming up in the next 1 hour right here on Midday Live. Let's head over and do our first story. And as you well know, on the 7th of July 2018, the NPP will be holding its delegates conference. That's this Saturday. So we will be taking a close look at the various aspirants for this conference. Well, speaking of the New Patriotic Party, they are having a press conference right now as we speak, and the General Secretary is currently speaking. And let's cross over and find out exactly what's happening.
15 patrons elected from among themselves. Founding members across the country who are signatories to the registration document of the party at the time we registered the party at the Electoral Commission. All MPP members in the region, that's MPP members of parliament in the region. But you also know that MPP members of parliament are members of the constituency executive committee already, so some of these cancelling out will be done. All party members who are ministers, deputy ministers, MMDCs are also delegates to this conference. Per Article 10.24 of our party constitution, the presence of at least 1/3 of the delegates to the annual delegates conference shall be necessary to constitute a quorum for this conference. The National Annual Delegates Conference shall also provide, or as provide in Article 10.26 of the party's constitution, deliberate and make appropriate resolutions on the following: the National Chairman's statement, the General Secretary's report, the National Treasurer's statement of accounts, and any other matter that will come to the attention of the Delegates Conference. Thereafter, elections shall be held to elect national officers of the party. The party, at its steering committee meeting and a joint National Council and National Executive Committee meeting held on Friday, June 29th and Saturday, June 30th, respectively, approved modalities for the conduct of the forthcoming National Annual Delegates Conference. And these are the modalities. Theme for the conference. The conference shall be anchored on the theme, building a stronger party, delivering prosperity to Ghanaians. The choice of this theme is based on the fact that the party indeed recognizes the need to build and strengthen its structures to become more formidable in order to sustain power so that it can continue to deliver prosperity to the Ghanaian people. The MPP undoubtedly remains the only party in Ghana that has been at the forefront of almost every progressive development in Ghana, and for that matter, in the delivery of prosperity to the people of this country. The party is credited with the introduction of almost all monumental economic and social interventions in this country, including the NHIS, capitation grant, metro mass transit or transport, livelihood empowerment against poverty, that is LEAP, free maternal care, school feeding program, discovery of oil in commercial quantities, stabilization of the nation's economy, free SHS, planting for food and jobs, restoration of teachers' training allowances,
So that was the presser there by the acting General Secretary of the NPP, John Boadu. Let's still stay in the camp of the NPP. And as we said, we'll be taking a look at the aspirants for their delegates conference. And let's take a special look at the National Youth Organizer position, because the New Patriotic Party's National Youth Organizer race promises to be keenly contested. Now, TV3 looks at the 4 aspirants for the position and what they promise to do to keep the NPP in power.
The National Youth Organizer position is one that is getting a lot of attention due to the personalities involved. The current Deputy National Youth Organizer, Dominic Edua, has been trumpeting his stewardship, which he argues contributed to the party's 2016 electoral victory.
Nobody can underestimate the legacy my boss has left. But the most interesting aspect is that I have been his deputy for 4 years. Nothing that happened as far as our administration is concerned that Dominic doesn't know about it. Okay. If not, I would have known Jason to get this opportunity for my youth organizers. Sure. It tells you that we are not in to replace, but we are in to partner.
The Deputy Director of the National Service Scheme, Henry Nana Boakye, popularly referred to as Nana B, also comes in strongly with his message for the Ghanaian youth who remain the key drivers of government change agenda. Also in the race is the affable National Nasara Coordinator, Kamaldeen, all having rallied effectively the Zongo community to support the NPP. Kamaldeen reportedly declined an offer to serve in government because he rather wants to maintain an executive position.
Building the youth front of our party, we first of all need a national youth secretariat, which I am promising, by the grace of Almighty Allah, should I emerge as the national youth organizer of our party, the very first achievement will be that one. And I will work on that, where we're going to have the youth working and youth recognizing themselves like never before.
Also confident in winning is Emmanuel Nana Bediako, who says the elections is not a popularity contest.
Are the directions that we want the youth of our party to tread upon. And I'm coming out with something known as the Constituency Youth Committee. The Constituency Youth Committee will compose of all the 275 constituency youth organizers and their deputies, and they will serve or form the advisory unit or body for the national youth organizer at the constituency and polling station level.
6 people initially picked forms to contest, but some fell out, leaving the 4 in the race. It remains very clear that much is expected from the next national youth organizer who steps into the shoes of the outgoing national youth organizer, Sami Ewuku. The party will go to the polls on July 7 to elect executives who will steer their affairs for the next 4 years.
An aspiring General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, Richard Ahiagbah, has discounted claims that he is not known in the party, saying his contender to the position is terrified by his presence in the race. Richard Ahiagbah, who spoke to my colleague Bright Jaka, also promised to lead a crusade in capturing more seats in the Volta region for the NPP.
The Volta region, since Ghana returned to democratic elections, has been a no-go area for the New Patriotic Party, leaving the National Democratic Congress to enjoy massive support over the years. However, Richard Ahiagbah believes that can change under his stewardship as the General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, promising to deliver 10 parliamentary seats for the New Patriotic Party in the Volta region if given the nod.
So we bought into this party mindset a very long time ago. We moved into Accra and we served here at Alaju where I was sitting. We worked with the leadership over there in 2000. We were all on the street singing Asio. When I traveled out of this country, which is in somewhere in 2004, I maintained my love for the party, which we have done at great cost. In the United States, where in most recent time before I came back was the director of communication for the chapter there. We've invested money. We've headlined a lot of fundraisings for this party. In fact, without going into details, my president knows what I have done.
Delegates of the governing New Patriotic Party are converging at the Koforidua Technical University to elect national executives who will steer the affairs of the party for the next 4 years. But what exactly sets Richard Ahiagba apart from John Boadu, who is the current national organizer and acting general secretary of the party?
If you take a resolute grassroots party from opposition into government, and suddenly that grassroots is now rupturing, if that grassroots is now despairing, if that grassroots is now faltering, then you ask yourself if you are doing a good job. It's not for me to decide. But if you take a grassroots that is united, a grassroots that underwrote the victory of our party in 2016, and that same grassroots in power is now not able to do what it did in opposition, now that we have power, then there's something questionable about it.
All right, to another trending issue this afternoon. I mean, it's been trending for the last week, and we're talking about the dismissal of Charlotte Osei, the former chair of the Electoral Commission, as well as her 2 deputies. Now, matters have arisen from that particular incident, and Kwame Damwajiman, the former chief director of the Electoral Commission, has these thoughts to share. Watch this.
With the chairperson and the 2 deputies who have been asked to go home by the president, how will that affect the integrity of the commission in the minds of Ghanaians?
With this removal of the commissioners, all the electoral calendars have gone off because there is no policy decision-making body to confirm whatever programs the commissioners and the staff have drawn up, and will be really pressed for time. So without the commission being in place, all these activities will be in abeyance. So I'll urge that immediately this thing has been accepted, the process should commence, let them appoint new commissioners within the short time frame, swear them into office, and then they should be up and running.
So how difficult would this process be, because the NDC feels as though that this whole decision wasn't fair, because there was a certain perception that was created during the 2016 election that if the MPP wins, Charlotte Osei was going to go?
When the election, 2023 elections were held, some parties were not happy with the outcome. And then when we proposed to the board that we should form an inter-party advisory committee, which is advisory, some of the commissioners were reluctant to accept that because some parties were saying they don't recognize their positions and so on. But when we said the invitation, the people came. And that is where they started making their own inputs. Then had the belief that they are part and parcel of whatever activities the commission will conduct. Even though the commission is independent, at least listening to their views will just make the people feel they are also part of the process. So if they extend the invitation, I think no party will reject. But if any party rejects, at least you have made a move and they have refused. That should be it.
Now, the president has done what is legally mandated of him to do, and he's reiterated it a number of times. He had no choice than to do this. But legally done, but politically, there are many who have raised the concern about the impact that this will have politically on us as a country. Do you recognize that challenge?
We all should eschew these partisan beliefs and wishes within the system. Election is about rules and regulations. Some of these electoral processes have caused wars and whatever in our neighborhood, which we know. And that we should not toy with the electoral management body, because that is the cradle of the democracy that we are trying to protect. So if we are going in, we should go with one voice and make sure that the commission is acting in accordance with the rules and regulations.
Now, let's further interrogate this particular issue. And I've been joined via Skype by Professor Justice Baule. He's a public management expert. Thank you very much, sir. Many thanks for joining us on Midday Live.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Now, what we want to know is, could an effective corporate governance structure have prevented the happenings at the EC as reported by the committee's report? Hello, Professor.
I'm very sorry, but I was quite jerky and I hardly got the intention. But at least I heard you talk about the corporate governance and the role that we could have played in the events that happened at the Electoral Commission. To be honest, this is a very complex issue, and I think that we need to be very careful in the way we analyze it, and because this is not an issue of administration, it's also an issue of politics, and we know what politics has done in Africa, especially when there are disagreements. And so the issue about one person gets by a political party and another political party to or that person is not seen lightly. But the issue of the Electoral Commission is a very, very complex one. First and foremost, that the chair of the Electoral Commission at the time found a number of things that had been done wrongly by her deputies, and she sought to correct them. And then, in a bid to correct them, we are told that there have been some breaches in her own actions. And so administrative processes for removing all of them. And so we got a process triggered. And I think that for fair sake,
unfortunately, we have to cut into that with Professor Justice Baule. We do apologize for the poor quality in sound and visual there, but we will try and get back to him and pick his thoughts on the happenings in the Electoral Commission. And still sticking to the Electoral Commission, who replaces Charlotte Osei and her two deputies, especially as the NPP Delegates Conference is just on Saturday? What happens? Let's find out from this piece.
But the Supreme Court has made a determination on the matter. So it's for the president to follow what has been determined as
by the court.
By the court, and then appoint someone. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is that we need somebody who would demonstrate absolute neutrality and give confidence to all parties that have this and that are engaged in this enterprise of party politics.
The NPP has decided to dismantle the peaceful electoral ecosystem that we have and to recalibrate the system to suit their political ends. We are watching the NPP dismantle peace in this country. I'm repeating it. And nobody is talking. All they have been doing so far is to dismantle the institutions that hold us together peacefully, so that they will institute a new electoral architecture to suit their long-term gains.
Well, let's still stay with the Electoral Commission. As we mentioned, it is a trending issue, and we've got Professor Justice Baule back on Skype and to once again take a look at what he thinks about the happenings in the Electoral Commission. Thank you very much for joining us once again, Prof.
Thank you.
All right. Now, the question I asked earlier was that, do you think that effective corporate governance structures could have prevented the happenings at the Electoral Commission?
Well, to be honest with you, there actually there were no breaches of corporate governance within the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission had its full constituents established, and they ran an election. What happened in the Electoral Commission is an issue of bad administrative practices, in my view. The chair of the commission joined and sought to stamp her authority on the commission. But I think in the process, she probably missed out a few things. One of them was she didn't operate an executive commission. And so even though she was chair of a commission, and therefore decisions and actions had to be taken at that level of the commission. And so if she took decisions that kind of set aside the role of the other commissioners, especially her deputy commissioner, then that would create problems. And that we saw created problems. And so for me, this was not an issue of corporate governance. It was an issue of bad administrative practices. I tend to think that if you see how she acted, for example, setting aside contracts that she thought were badly entered into and wanting to do the right things, then you would anticipate that she would do the right things as well.
Yeah.
What we hear is that there were quite a lot of administrative breaches of the procurement law, which is the things that she sought to correct in the first place. So if she was seeking to correct things that were wrong, you would anticipate that she would be doing the right things. Yeah. If she didn't do those right things, then the issue is whether or not we wish to see clear breaches of administrative procedures and procurement procedures, and we close our eyes and say, let them go on, let them go on.
Now, yeah. Prof, finally, before you leave, as the president readies to begin the processes of getting into office, a new electoral commissioner, what are some of the things that should be considered in the process?
Well, because this is a very volatile institution, very, very complex in the way that the political actors look at it, I think it has to be a very open, transparent, if you like, competitive and quite consultative process to be able to get a new person. I overheard somebody talking on your network talking about the fact that the MPP wants to have a new hegemony established in the Electoral Commission. And so these perceptions are already being fueled. And so we would expect the president to set up a process that is quite transparent in the way that people would have trust in it, so that even if political actors would not trust it just because one person is appointing, the other people, including neutral Ghanaians or level-headed Ghanaians, would say this was a very good process and therefore would not fault the process.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Justice Bawley. He is a public management expert, and we've been picking his thoughts on the happenings in the Electoral Commission. And now to our MTN video report this afternoon, our citizen journalist throws some light on some issues of bad roads in Ashoman.
This is a very big gutter. It comes all the way from Oibi. The water comes down from Ebri, and then all the way from here, then it moves to Zenu down. It happened some time ago. Cars were stuck here. No car can be able to pass. Even motorcades, Aboboya, they can't even pass. Last year around November, it took somebody away like that, and then it led to death. They don't compact the thing well. Yes. We there with the sofa. I am Solomon Adams reporting from Katamanso, Ashaman Municipality.
Well, you can also be like Solomon Adams and send your video report via WhatsApp number 0551 433 044. 0551 433 044. Media Live continues shortly after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to Midday Live on TV3, and let's do some business news now. A lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana, Edu Wusu Sarkodie, has challenged government to adequately resource the Ghana Revenue Authority and provide staff with incentives to enable them deliver. He spoke on Business Focus on TV3.
The institutions that are supposed to collect revenue, the GRA, we can talk about the SEPs, we can talk about all the other agencies, their officials. We can, give them some incentives. It can even be a commission base. You collect this amount of revenue, you have this percentage. Let's motivate them with that. They also need resources, because one of the tenets of tax collection is about efficiency. If I spend 100 cedis to collect 80 cedis, then it's not worth it. So the efficiency, the resources, the logistics, cars, computers, whatever they need to collect the taxes must be provided to them. We have talked about property tax. How many property don't we have at East Legon, airport residential area? If you are there and nobody comes to your house to collect it, do you expect somebody to walk to your office and go and pay? No. I think that I talked about the resourcing the revenue collecting agencies. If you give them cars or whatever they need to move from one house to the other, I think that they would. If I'm in my house, if you don't come to me, it's very less likely that I will come to you. But if you come to the house, I will pay.
I had a friend of mine share with me that he has a huge mansion in Kumasi.
Yes.
And he was thinking that his property tax was going to be maybe in the thousands.
Yes.
And they bring him a bill of 500 Ghana.
500 Ghana cedis.
So he said to himself that, look, I'll add additional 500, because he just couldn't understand the calculation that was
And
used.
how often does he even pay that? Was it once in a month? Once in a year?
So it's just a clear situation.
And to the banking sector, the employees of defunct Capital Bank and UT Bank have petitioned the president to personally intervene to facilitate the payment of their severance pay, which was agreed with joint receivers on January 15. There is more in the following report.
A petition dated May 20, 2018 and copied to the Chief of Staff said the over 1,200 employees were also appealing to the President, Akufo-Addo, to intervene for their entitlements to be paid. According to the leaders of the two banks, Raymond Adaidankwa for Capital Bank Ghana Limited and Stephen Ernest Enin for UT Bank Limited, there are other issues to be addressed, like leave outstanding, leave days to be paid as per the Labour Act 2003, Sections 25 and 26. As per conventional banking practice, the employees are also appealing for a waiver of their staff loans as a result of extenuating circumstances. The statement read in part, liquidation is a very difficult period for workers, their families, and dependents, so to keep them at the bottom of the priorities in payment of claims listed under Section 135 of Act 930 is a bit unfair. It leaves workers very vulnerable, and given the hardships they're experiencing, it seems to them that the relevant agencies are not mindful of their plight. The workers further appealed for a review of the laws governing liquidation, specifically Section 135 of Act 930.
Well, that's all for business news this afternoon. We'll return shortly with more. Do stay. Welcome back to Midday Live. Let's do some issues regarding politics again, and let's go back to the MPP, because with their delegates conference just set for July 7th, that's this Saturday, questions has been raised about how they will cope with the absence of an electoral commissioner and deputies. This is what the MPP had to say.
This country is governed by law and not emotions or whims and caprices of individuals. Neither is the country governed by the wishes of political parties alone. The 1992 Constitution of Ghana remains the supreme law of Ghana, and as you will all agree, all processes leading to their removal from office are in absolute compliance with the provisions of the Constitution, nothing more, nothing. It is also a truism that this whole thing started with internal wranglings involving the three top officials throwing mud at each other. with all manner of accusations and counter-accusations, which eventually found expressions in petitions filed by some workers of the Electoral Commission themselves, thereby triggering Article 146 of the Constitution. The President only performed what the Constitution of Ghana enjoins him to perform by, first of all, referring such petitions to the Chief Justice and acting in accordance with the recommendations of the committee set up by the Chief Justice to investigate the complaints, having established a prima facie case, as the lawyers would put it. As we all know, it was the CJ's committee that recommended the removal of the former chairperson and her 2 deputies upon finding them guilty of wrongdoing, and for that matter, breaches of law and stated misbehavior pursuant to Article 146. At this moment, the President had absolutely no option but to act in accordance to the committee's recommendation, else he would have been held in breach of the Constitution, and that may constitute a ground for his impeachment. We all owe it a duty to respect the Constitution of our country, and nobody is above the laws of Ghana, not even the President. So if the President himself is subject to the laws of Ghana, then certainly Charlotte Osei and her deputies cannot be above the laws and the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana.
All right, and now let's take a closer look to the issues, matters arising regarding the EC, because news just in indicates that citizen Fafali Nyonator has sued the Attorney General over the dismissal of Charlotte Osei. My colleague Felix Akoyam has more details on this story, and he's joined us in the studio. Felix, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on Midday Live. Right. First of all, what connection does Fafali Nyonator have with this case?
So far, what we do know is that Fafali Nyonator is a private citizen. We don't have much information about who he is, but essentially he's seeking 4 reliefs at the Supreme Court.
4 reliefs, okay.
4 reliefs.
What are they?
So the first one is that he wants a declaration by the Supreme Court that the decision by the Chief Justice to establish a prima facie case against Charlotte Osei was unconstitutional. The second relief he's seeking is that the committee that was set up by the Chief Justice usurped the powers of the Supreme Court, because, I mean, the Constitution says that it is only the Supreme Court that has the power to interpret provisions that relates to the Constitution. And you know that there's already a controversy about what really the stated misbehavior and incompetence that the committee based its recommendation on, what it essentially means. So Fafali Nyonator wants the Supreme Court to really define what stated, misbehavior and incompetence really means. And he's essentially saying that the CJ's committee doesn't have that power to define what these 2 words mean, I mean, as the Constitution puts it. The third relief he's seeking is that he wants an order from the Supreme Court to declare the decision, the recommendation and the decision by President Akufo-Addo to remove Charlotte Osei as null and void. The last relief he's seeking is the fact that he wants the Supreme Court to injunct the President from appointing anybody to replace Charlotte Osei.
The plot thickens, as we'll say. So I'm sure you'll be keeping tabs on this particular development and you'll be giving us details.
Certainly. The Attorney General has 14 days to respond to this writ.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Felix Akoyam. He is a broadcast journalist here at Media General with TV3 and 3FM, and he's been giving us an update on the suit against the Attorney General over the dismissal of Charlotte Osei. Now let's look at some issues regarding health, because an outbreak of bird flu has been reported in Ghana, leading to the killing of 11,816 birds out of the number 5,431 birds have so far been killed by the flu at Wankra near Ejiso in the Ashanti region, while 5,935 have been killed in Nkoko in the eastern region. However, only 450 birds from a farm in Tema in the Greater Accra region have been killed by the flu in 2016. And we'll have more details of this particular outbreak, and we'll be definitely informing you of that in our subsequent bulletin. Well, that's all for international news this afternoon. Let's do some local news now, and let's do news regarding the transport sector, because drivers of the quality bus system, popularly known as Ayalolo, have embarked on a sit-down strike over unpaid salary arrears. The aggrieved drivers have not received salaries over the past 5 months. Commuters who went to the various terminals, including Amasaman of Angkor, Adenta and Kaswa, to board the buses to the Central Business District, were reportedly directed by staff to patronize private commercial buses. Well, I've been joined on the phone lines by Fred Chidi. He is the Director of Communications for the Ayalolo Transport Company. Good afternoon, Fred. Many thanks for joining us on Midday Live.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Alice.
All right. Now, there's an issue of a 5 months salary that have not been paid. We also had a similar issue sometime last year around November. It's about 2 months salary arrears, and then they embarked on a strike. What exactly is happening?
Well, it's just unfortunate that this morning we woke up to hear this unfortunate news that the drivers have resorted to a sit-down strike. It was not something that we were expecting, because the issue about unpaid salaries and grievances are issues that has to do with the Labour Commission. As a matter of fact, sometime 2 months ago, the drivers complained about non-payment of salaries regularly and on the appointed time, and made a report to the Labour Commission. And so between then and now, we've been dealing with those issues, and the Labour Commission has been in arbitration with the drivers' union. Now, I need to explain that the drivers are not employees of Ayalolo. They are employees of their drivers' unions, the GPRTU, Protoa, and the cooperatives. They are the companies that are providing drivers for the Ayalolo service.
But
and so, yes.
Well, Fred, obviously this will be affecting the company directly, because as the reason why this company was set up when this bus system was introduced was to supplement the local ones that were already in existence. But it doesn't look like that is working. How is this particular strike going to affect the company?
Well, it's affecting the company to the extent that we are not able to ferry passengers along the corridor between Amasama and Tudu this morning. So if with the statistics, with the numbers that we have, we do about 10 to 11,000 passengers on daily basis. So with the suspension of service by these drivers, what it means is that about 10 to 11,000 passengers along that stretch, the 21-kilometer stretch between Tudu and Amasaman, are without the services of Ayalolo. So it is quite intense. It is something that is regrettable. We wish it didn't happen, especially as I was explaining that this matter is with the Labour Commission, which is in arbitration over the matter. And of course, you do know that if a matter is in arbitration with the Labour Commission, none of the parties should lay down their tools. Otherwise, the strike is illegal. And so it's quite unfortunate that the drivers would have to resort to this, knowing that negotiations are going on for their grievances to be addressed.
All right. Fred Chidi, thanks very much for joining us on Midday Live this afternoon. He is the Director of Communications for the Ayalolo Bus Company, and he was sharing his thoughts on the sit-down strike by some drivers. Let's do some entertainment news now. Right, in entertainment news this afternoon, we're asking the question: should gospel musicians get paid for, or charged to perform in churches? And that may be regarded as doing the work of God. But UK-based Ghanaian gospel musician Hannah Abadonko thinks the church should compensate musicians when they are invited to minister.
When gospel artists sing in church and at church concerts, are they evangelizing or plying their trade?
No one else but you. I see this.
It comes across as a controversial topic. Unexpectedly, it has sharply divided clerics and artists. The church has been the place where most gospel and non-gospel talents are discovered. UK-based Ghanaian gospel musician Hannah Abadonko discovered her gift while singing for the choir.
I started singing at the age of 6. When I go to church, the pastor raised a song, I'm there already. Day Spring Chapel, that is the church that groomed me. They had a huge choir, so, I joined the choir. I started, choir rehearsals with them. God being so good, I started leading the choir and, here and there, and this is how far God has brought me.
A great number of pastors believe that gospel artists should not charge fees since their act constitutes the work of God. Some musicians, on the other hand, argue that a lot of time and money goes into rehearsals for performances and deserve to be compensated.
Is a church supporting gospel musicians? You come from the church, you sang for the choir for years, and that was where you started and all that.
Yeah, I would say the church is not supporting. There are some pastors that, it's not for business, but when an artist is coming for a program, they used petrol. They brought instrumentalists to play. Instrumentalists will take their money, but some pastors, when you go, they wouldn't even, give you a small envelope to say, "Oh, God bless you."
But have you had that instance before?
Yes, I've had one before. Sometimes it's not always good to charge. Sometimes you may not charge, but the pastor will also not bless you. And in this case, you have to pay the instrumentalist. You have to pay for the petrol.
You're doing the work of God. And so
you're doing the work of God.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the instrumentalists you're going with, they are taking their money. They know they are doing the work of God, but they will not play for free.
So if you are invited, how do you deal with such situations?
I speak to my manager. If he gives the go-ahead, then we follow the process. With me, if you need to speak to my management. You don't deal with me directly.
That's it for Midday Live. But before we wrap up, I'd like to say congratulations to Johnny Beresford Hughes for winning the TV Male Personality Award at the just ended Genta Awards in the USA. Congratulations once again. My name is Solis Rose. Many thanks for staying with us. Good afternoon.